This is Johnny and Jose with TigerBomb MMA, and tonight we'll be going over UFC Fight Night, Font versus Garbrandt. Going over the entire card, giving you thoughts and predictions, possible parlays that we'll do, props, and etc. We'll be going over a quick breakdown of UFC 262. So if you want to hear about the actual fights this weekend, just click the link below to skip ahead. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the entire trip out there. Met a couple people. I met Derek Lewis. I met Mike Beltran, which was awesome. And I also met Lauren Murphy. Yeah, Lauren Murphy. Also, I tried Hop Dotty at the request of PayPal My Money, DFS. Probably the best burger I've ever had. Damn good. But yeah, it was awesome. Like the experience back with a live crowd was honestly, it was a little different because I've been in live crowds before, but coming back, it just felt a little not strange. It just was slightly off because I'm so used to watching fights on TV, watching them in person. It does affect the enjoyment factor because there were certain fights that when I was on Twitter, people were like, "Oh, this fight's really good." I'm like, "Damn, this fight's fucking boring in person." It was the one in particular, Grundy versus Lando. I remember just being like, "Oh my god, like what are they doing?" Like they're very tentative. Snell versus Bontarin too. I'm like, this is a fucking stinker. Like I remember the crowd was just booing, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, they deserve to get booed. But when I'm checking Twitter, it's like, why are the crowd booing? I'm like, fight's fucking boring. And to address something, because I know a lot of people were like, why are people booing Beneil Dariush? They need to boo something. They were on Tony's balls the entire time in the live crowd. Like literally, I could not go anywhere without hearing someone say Tony this and Tony that, and not a word about Beneil. To the point, like even Beneil with his post-fight speech that I had to go back and listen because I could not hear a damn word he was saying. He was talking about like being a good Christian and like disavowing communism, like great talking points for an American crowd, and they were just booing this shit out of him. And I couldn't hear a damn thing, but it was hilarious. Like anything Tony did, the crowd would go nuts. Even when he had him in a I want to say it was a Darce choke or at least a Darce grip, but that was nowhere near to being complete. To the point, like a guy behind me was like, "He's got the choke and tap him out, Tony." I'm like, "You're a fucking idiot. He's not gonna tap him out. He's in guard. You can't tap him out like that. He's against the cage. It's not gonna happen." But yeah, they were in love with Tony. Like he could have shat on someone's face and they would have cheered. So I wouldn't take offense to them booing Beneil Dariush, but it's pretty damn funny how madly in love Houston was with Tony.
I think I can understand why they were booing. At least in my mind, Beneil Dariush was schooling Tony on the ground for a lot of the fight. And so that, in the eyes of the crowd wasn't generating all the action that they wanted to see. They wanted to see, Tony light up Beneil or vice versa, or, to have them go to war on their feet. But instead, he decided to dominate Tony on his feet, which dominate Tony on the ground, which for the average fan looking for violence isn't the most exciting 15 minutes that you can spend. There were some moments, but it was like maybe 5 minutes of action on their feet total, if that. It was way less than a round of action on their feet, I would say, for the entirety of that fight. So I think that's partly why they were booing, because I myself was like, man, they should just get up and start lighting each other up, because this is getting pretty damn boring. Even when Beneil had him in the ankle lock, yeah, it still wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't the most exciting of fights, and I think Beneil has maybe at least. I think he's got to beat two more guys to get to the title for sure. He's got to fight maybe Chandler, and I'd say the loser. Well, actually, I don't think McGregor would fight Dariush. I don't think he's that big
No,
of a
he
name.
wouldn't do that.
McGregor wouldn't fight Dariush. Well, for one thing, McGregor would get his ass submitted, and it would just create another McGregor meme. But for sure, he's got to get past like Gate. 2 out of 3. Gaethje, Poirier, and Chandler, and maybe Hooker or something. Hooker's in that division, right? Yeah,
Yeah, he's lightweight.
He's lightweight. Yeah, so he's got to get past at least 2 of those guys to get to the title. and get past, like really get past them, not just kind of sit on them.
I will say though, to your point about the Dariush fight versus Tony, I'd like
Yeah,
to believe that, but like being there, I can almost guarantee you that if Dariush would have knocked out Tony with like a flying elbow, like knee, like fucking Tony Jaw in an Ong Bak, and just
yeah,
flatlined him, they would have still booed his ass, dude. He could have
yeah.
done nothing that day to
Yeah,
get.
they would have booed that. I think some of the crowd maybe wanted some action on the feet, not just him dominating on the ground. Especially having a live crowd, you want to see that. If there's nobody there and you're watching it on free TV, or I've heard of people streaming these things.
I've never heard of that. What?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Um, yeah, then that's one thing. But being live crowd, you're paying for blood to be spilled, so that's part of it, I think.
During there were fights within the crowds multiple times. There was like 3 total fights in the actual stands with people.
Uh-huh.
Hilarious, dude. There was a moment in the Barboza versus Burgos where everyone's going nuts for it because of the great fight. I think the 3rd round, when it was starting, people were booing, and I'm like, why are they booing? Like, I know they're not booing Burgos. Like, something's going on. I guess the cops there split up a fight in the stands, so the crowd was booing the fact that they were stopping a fight in the stands. And I go and look at the cage, and I see Burgos kind of confused, like, why are they booing us? Like, what the fuck's going on? It's like he was so confused for a second. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Chandler versus Oliveira. I talked a lot of shit about Oliveira and how he quits, and I gotta eat that because he showed that, damn, he's not doing that shit anymore. Because he could have done that in that first round where he was getting his ass handed to him by Chandler, and yeah, he survived. I don't know. My thought is that he has the Kevin Randleman powers now with that hair. Maybe because he has a kid, maybe his new teeth. I don't know what it is, but the fact is he's not quitting anymore. And it's one of those things like I can be wrong a lot, and sometimes you don't want to accept it. But I do appreciate the fact that I can be wrong about something when a guy's improving. So I'm glad to see he's done with that type of stuff, or he's not going to be quitting mid fight. It's a big thing for me, especially when betting guys. I'm like, if I've seen this happen before, I don't want it to be the next time that I bet him that he ends up quitting a fight or tapping the strike. So I'm glad for the time being, at least, he's proved to me that he's not doing that bitch shit anymore. So good for him. Congratulations.
Yeah, man, that left hook that
Ooh,
Chandler ate, that was
it was
pretty sweet.
it was
I mean,
beautiful.
yeah, I'm pretty sure boxing guys are gonna talk shit like, oh, that wasn't the best left hook. Yeah, no shit. He's a Muay Thai fighter. It's not boxing, jackass. But yeah, no, his striking has improved drastically. I was wrong as well. I think I recall going with Chandler as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, man, dude, Oliveira proved everybody wrong, man. He is by far, I think, the most improved fighter of the last few years. It's funny, his trajectory has gone, he's gone uphill. Meanwhile, the last 2 3 years, Cowboy's trajectory has gone to the shit. I guess the energy has gone in Oliveira's direction, man. He's shown that he is possibly the best jiu-jitsu guy. Now that Damian Maia is either retired or close to retiring, actively in the UFC, man. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him versus Khabib. I think that would have been, a very interesting fight. Not that what's his face, Chandler wasn't good on the ground. He was okay on the ground. Because in most instances, what I was going to say last week was that in most instances, I would say a wrestler dominates on the ground. Like if you have an experienced wrestler versus an experienced, jiu-jitsu practitioner, the wrestler usually is going to dominate on the ground for the most part, except in the case of Askren and Maya. Maya schooled Askren. But in most other cases, I would go with, the wrestler because they control the ground and they're usually on top, and, they're a lot of times better with the scramble. Um, but man, Oliveira showed that he was not scared whatsoever to go to the ground with Chandler. And props to him, man. I saw a video today of him celebrating back in, wherever he's from in Brazil. And everybody's, out there with him, giving hugs, giving props. It's amazing. Can't wait to see him. I'm pretty sure they're going to match him up with Gaethje next, and that's going to be very, very interesting.
That will be very interesting.
I think everybody's going to expect Gaethje to light him up on his feet, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. His Muay Thai, as he showed, has improved leaps and bounds. I mean, the comparison, or the person I would say I'd compare him with is Dos Anjos, RDA, because Rafael Dos Anjos was mainly, I think he was mainly a jiu-jitsu guy when he first came in. The striking was not that great until he went with what's that guy's name, Chris Pirillo, and then we saw what he did to Anthony Pettis. He lit him up. Jason Pirillo. Who the hell's Chris Pirillo? I don't know. Yeah, Jason Pirillo, that guy. Yeah, he took his boxing and striking to the next level, and he became the champion. And I guess down in because Oliveira trains down in what else is training in I think where Anderson used to train. No.
Shoot the box.
Shoot the box. And so, yeah, man, his striking is now on par with his jiu-jitsu, man. So he is the most dangerous guy in that division right now. If everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, Gaethje's the next champ. Nope. I think he is going to piece him up on the feet and then choke him out on the ground. He's going to get past Gaethje, and then after Poirier wins the trilogy, I think he's going to come after the title, and that's going to be an interesting fight. I think Oliveira does not have an easy road ahead of him. But his next 2-3 fights, this guy is going to sell out arenas. So I'm very excited to watch him fight and watch him improve and watch him beat a lot of these guys that seem unbeatable, but this guy does it, man. He's been doing it the last 2-3 years, and I think I don't know. I guess maybe I should talk about the actual fights coming up. But
yeah, but enough about that. We'll get started with our card here. Our first fight, according to Tapology, at lightweight, we've got Damir Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves. I don't know what the nickname The Turn means, but I guess it's his turn to get his ass beat by Damir Ismagulov, because Damir's going to decision him easily. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. Rafael Alves is a pretty explosive guy. He's got really dynamic jiu-jitsu, very dynamic striking. His last win was against Alejandro Flores in the Contender Series, where he got him in a very nice and tight guillotine choke, which got him into the UFC. His last loss was a few months ago when he got TKO'd by the scales versus his fight with Danny Sabatello. What I thought was funny about that, if you can see the picture right now, it's him crying on the scales. And I was like, why is he crying? Like he missed weight by like 2 pounds. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why is he crying? Like, what? He missed by 2 pounds. It's like 157. Like he can maybe cut that. It's all right. And I found out it was supposed to be at featherweight. And I'm like, holy shit, he missed by a lot. So for his insolence, they're giving him Damir Ismagulov, who is a Kazakhstani wrestler. He reminds some people of like kind of a Khabib style. He's really good. He will decision you. That's what he does best. He's fought a lot of guys with good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling, good grappling. And although he hasn't fought in about almost 2 years, I think it should be, I don't want to say a cakewalk, but he should just be able to easily outpoint Rafael Alves. Like the fact that he has to move up in weight and they're giving him Damir Ismagulov kind of gives you an idea that the UFC wants to test this guy because they're not certain on him. If he can beat Damir, damn, he's going to have a pretty good run. But yeah, he's not going to beat him. He's super outgunned here. 74-inch reach for Ismagulov. 68-inch reach for Rafael Alves. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'8". And Demir's not the biggest guy either. He's 5'9". But with that reach, it's not going to be a good night for Alves. So I think he's going to get outstruck. He's not going to be able to take down Ismagulov and Demir by decision.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this fight. The consensus is Demir's going to get that win. He's going to get it by decision. I don't know. I really don't know what else to say more than what's already been said. He's going to have the physical advantage over Alves. And yeah, he's just going to get, he's going to go to 23 and he's going to be 23-1 after this. And they're probably going to give him somebody a little bit higher ranked, a little bit more of a challenge. Alves, on the other hand, I think this is going to be the beginning of his downward spiral because he didn't really impress all that much. Anyway, yeah, so I'm taking Demir by decision.
Our next matchup, also at lightweight, we've got Yancy Medeiros versus the Bosnian bomber Damir Hadzovic. Double Damir day this Saturday. I'm actually I'll give it to you. I'm going to go with Damir just because of Yancy's chin, but I'm actually thinking about doing a double Damir parlay just for the hell of it, see what odds I would get. Actually, I forgot to bring up the odds for the last fight. Damir is a minus 550 favorite compared to plus 400 Alves. For whatever reason, I forgot to bring that up. And for this one, it's a near even minus 124. Hadzovic. Medeiros is minus 105. Medeiros, I think he's the better fighter because he can actually try to take it to the ground and implement some submissions. Damir, we've seen him kind of get dominated on the ground before, even with a fight that he won against. He just won in the PFL. Great grappler, heel hook, whatever. He ended up winning by like a flash knee to the face when he went for an Imanari roll. Damn, how come I can't remember his name? I'm going to find out right now. He fought, and I'm going to be like, God damn, why do I keep forgetting people's names while I'm recording? And it was Marcin Held. Yeah, he beat Marcin Held when he went for an Imanari roll, but he was getting completely dominated at that point. And that's his downfall, the ground game. He got dominated by Moicano, and the funniest thing was he got mad at Moicano because he said like, oh, I wish the fight lasted longer. And he said to him like, well, why did you submit me then? And it's like, because he could. So that's what I think Yancy would have to do because he's not called a Bosnian bomber for nothing. He has hands on him. And I think he is going to eventually find the chin of Medeiros. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. Lost to Lando Venata, who I kind of suspect has some pillow fists, but he got knocked out by Gillespie by getting taken down and beaten down. Got knocked out by Cerrone. That was 3 years ago. Maybe his chin's recovered. He's 33 years old, but he's taken a lot of punishment in the UFC. So that's the reason I'm going with Damir Hadzovic. I'll go with a first-round knockout. I think he eventually catches the chin. He has to go in there because his reach is significantly lesser than Yancy. So Yancy, he has a chance to win this one, of course. So he has to stay on the outside. I would say he should be the rightful favorite. Yancy is because I think his skill set is way better than Damir's. I'm just said I'm going against his chin. So I got, again, Damir to win this one by a first-round knockout.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I see this fight very similar to last week's. And not to say that Damir is shit, his name escapes me right now. He went against Shane Burgos.
Barboza.
Barboza. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, when we record, it's like, who? That guy with the Irish guy? Mick something? Yeah, like I don't know what it is about when we start recording. I just forget everyone's names.
Yeah, not to say Damir is shit, I forgot his name again. Barboza. Not to say Damir's Barboza, man, but I see this as, Yancy being like Shane, similar to Shane Burgos, where you have this guy who should be really good on his feet, should be good when it goes to the ground. But I don't know, man. There's something that, that they're not making known to the public that is affecting these guys, man, on, outside of training. It could be family related, it could be training related, it could be something in their head that's, psyching them out, or I don't know, man. But I feel like, Yancey is similar to Shane in that they are in a downward spiral, and his time, and I don't know, I think he's going to get cut pretty soon. His back is definitely against the wall here, man. I don't know what his mindset is like. But yeah, I think Demir is set to piece up Yancey. Yancey, I think, is going to come in, try to take the fight to the ground. But I see Demir, maybe catching him with a hook or an uppercut, man, or a combination.
You think they're cutting Shane Burgos?
No, I mean it. I'm saying in terms of, it's kind of like Shane Burgos in that, their careers are spiraling downward out of control. I think they're going to cut Yancy Medeiros, man. He's after this fight, he's going to be on a 4-fight losing streak. And I think Demir has a higher ceiling, than Yancy at this point, man, because Yancy has had all these chances to make a name for himself. He didn't, man. His last 3 fights, or rather, one of his more let's put it this: one of his more significant wins, or rather, a few of his significant wins go back to 2017. Man, this is 3.5 years ago. He beat Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Well, he beat one Cowboy, and then he got destroyed by the other Cowboy, by Cerrone. And he beat Eric Silva, at UFC 212. And Eric Silva, where the hell did that guy go? And so, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know if they want to keep Yancy Medeiros around, with as many guys as they're bringing in. And long story short, I'm also going with Demir. I'm going with, let's say, second round KO.
Our next matchup at featherweight, we've got a match between Josh Culibao and Yilan Shah. Yilan Shah is coming in here from China, and I'm going to make this one as short as possible. I'll start with the odds. Minus 255 for Culibao. Shah comes in plus 200. Very accurate, because I've learned my lesson when it comes to these Chinese fighters. It's more of I'm going to wait and see. No matter what I say about this fight, no matter if I like what I say and who I pick, it's not going to go as planned, because I did do some research on Yilan. No matter how much research I watch on these Chinese fighters, sometimes they don't end up fighting that way in the United States, because we saw with the actual guy he lost to last, which was Zhu Rong. I saw a lot of tape on Zhu Rong. I'm like, oh, this guy's dynamic on the feet. He's light on his feet, throws punches really well. Then he gets pieced up by a very slow, plotty Mexican wrestler. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? He's just looking at his corner the whole time. So same kind of thing with Shaw. He's a good striker. As for Culibao, he came into the UFC undefeated. He got beat by Jalen Turner. He got just outgunned, out everything. He just came in there on short notice, and he got beat up by the bigger guy. And then that kind of gave you an idea of like, man, this guy may not be ready for the UFC. And he comes in and he goes to a split decision with Charles Jourdain, which was actually a split decision draw. He looked pretty good. He was very good on his feet. He wasn't like the most dynamic striker you've ever seen, but he had a certain roughness, grittiness, and toughness to him that was like, man, this guy will fight for your money. I'm going to go with Culibao just because he has the experience in the UFC. I know what he will do in a certain situation when it comes to like actually fighting in America. And I think he's just better everywhere. So he'll be able to honestly use his size advantage against him. He'll grapple when he needs to grapple, and he can outstrike the smaller guy. He's 5'10" compared to 5'8" for Shaw. And he's got nearly a 2-inch reach advantage into this one. So as long as he doesn't do anything stupid, I think he wins this one. He is significantly outgunned when it comes to the experience. But in my opinion, a fight with Charles Jourdain completely trumps 25 fights that Shaw has. So I'll go with Culibao to win this one just based on his overall experience, his draw with Charles Jourdain. He even dropped Charles Jourdain. So I'll go with Culibao by decision.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say about this I would say these unproven UFC debuts usually have to go. You have to see how they fight first before you jump on any sort of train. And this guy, they call him Wolverine. I don't think it's. I don't think he's. I don't think they call him that. And with regard to the Hugh Jackman or Wolverine Marvel character, I think he's more like they named him after the actual Wolverine. Because he's scrappy. But coming to UFC, it's a whole other level, that these guys are fighting. And I think, yeah, once they get a taste of, their wrestling or grappling isn't on par with a lot of even somebody like Josh Culibao, who's, he's not Khabib in any sense of the word. Or wait, who would be close to Khabib in the featherweight division? Dvalishvili?
Well, kind of, but not really. I would say, well, actually, there's no one really in that division
Or
that's
or
exactly like.
e- or even not even a Khabib, but let's say an aggressive grappler, like what's that guy's name, P City or something. You know what I mean? Once they come up, against a guy like that, they're like, oh shit, my grappling is on par with these guys. Then it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different ball game, and I think that's what he's going to experience in here. Culibao isn't by any means a Khabib or a T City or anything like that. But I think he just has more to offer, like you said, at this point. So you can't really go with the Chinese fighter. That at least not at least, or at least until they prove themselves. So I'll go with Culibao by decision. Yeah, at the very least 29. He's got to get at least two of these rounds to get a 29-28 decision. I think he'll get his first win in the UFC.
Our next fight at flyweight, we've got a fight between vicious Victor Rodriguez and Bulldog Bruno Silva. The odds currently have it at minus 280 for Silva and a plus 240 for Rodriguez. And I'll make this one quick as well. I got Bulldog to win this one by a second round submission. I think he is at a certain point in his career where he just got a big win against a guy who was favored to beat him in JP buys. He knocked him out, and he's shown that he's actually getting better every single time we see him fight. Like either his hands have gotten better, his grappling has gotten better. And to make this point, I might have beaten this dead horse already, but the fight with Ulanbekov, I personally thought he won that one. Like he just showed me more in that fight, which would that's what caused me to actually put a bet on him against JP buys. I think I actually had him to win by finish, which paid out pretty nicely. And I just like everything about Bulldog. He demonstrates that he is very, very scrappy and very grimy when he needs to. I know he's lost a couple times in the UFC, but that's it is what it is. You're fighting some of the best guys. As for Rodriguez, like he did just lose to Adrian Yanez by a nasty knockout via head kick about 6 months ago. And at this point, like he's okay. He's I think if they don't give him his walking papers after this loss, he will get a win in the UFC because I think he's pretty talented, but he's not at that level yet against a guy with the amount of experience that Bruno Silva has and the camp behind him. And people like to bring up James Krause as one of the best coaches, but when you've got Triple C behind you and coaching you and giving you advice, it it really does elevate people's games. That guy, cringe or not, he's got a different type of mentality. And if he can get in your ear and kind of give you some advice on how to be a competitor, which Triple C is, Henry will just take your game and take it to a different level, whether it be multiple levels up or even just a single level. That might be enough to win and beat certain guys. And in this case, I think Bruno Silva has that type of mentality, has that type of skill set, and that competitive drive to beat Victor Rodriguez. So I've got him to win. It might be a sketchy first round because, again, Rodriguez is good, but I have Bruno Silva to win this one by second round submission. Personally, I think it might be a guillotine. So I'll go second round guillotine.
I'll make this one quick. I'll say Bruno Silva by second round rear naked choke. I think, yeah, I think with, he's Rodriguez is at a disadvantage with, if he had maybe Peter Yan in his corner, I'd say the fight would be a little bit more even. Or even if he had the Funk Master in his corner, I'd say this would make for a more interesting fight. But unfortunately, with Triple C in Bruno Silva's corner, his game enough to just stifle Rodriguez and catch him with a submission. I see the first round as a feeling out process round. Then the second round, I think Bruno Silva's gonna get the distance. He's gonna have that distance well measured out, and then when he takes it to the ground, I think he's gonna get him. He's gonna take his back and get him in that rear naked.
Our next matchup at welterweight, we've got a match between Hannibal Claudio Silva, and the Crusher Court McGee. And this one is one of those fights when I'm looking at it, I have an idea of like, oh, I know who I'm going to bet, or not even that. I know who I'm going to choose to win. But when you kind of break it down, you can overanalyze it, and it could be one of those fights that you overanalyze to the point that you pick the wrong guy, or you don't analyze enough and you miss something. Because Claudio Silva, I think he's just the overall better fighter, but he's 38 years old. Court McGee at this point, he's on a 3-fight losing streak, but he's slightly younger, and he has a good blueprint, in my opinion, on beating Claudio Silva. But if he can implement that at this point in time with those many losses and the way he's kind of looked, it's like, man, I'm going to stay away from this one completely. The odds are -130 for Silva, +105 for Court McGee. And it's one of those things, like 38 years old, almost 39 for Silva. And his last fight was a loss to James Krause. And he did not look good in that fight at all. And that could either be because James Krause just looked phenomenal that time, or he is showing his age because he does gas out. He's a phenomenal fighter on the ground. He's a good jiu-jitsu specialist, black belt. He verbally submitted Danny Roberts, and I actually tweeted this because I think when Tony was in that heel hook, he screamed out, and I'm like, oh, LOL. Kim Winslow would have counted that as a verbal submission, which is what happened with Danny Roberts and Hannibal. He screamed out, and he's like, oh, tap, tap, that's a tap. And he's like, I didn't tap, I screamed. I'm like, yeah, technically is a verbal submission, but whatever. And yeah, if he's fighting lesser competition, I think Claudio Silva runs through every single guy. He even beat Leon Edwards 6 years ago, but that was 6 years ago. And Court McGee, it's hard to say if he's lower competition. He is the ultimate fighter winner, for God's sakes, but that doesn't always mean everything. He has lost to, I guess, some, I don't want to say lower level competition, because Diego Lima, he's like middling. Sean Brady, I would say he's a higher ranked guy. And Carlos Condit, he's kind of on a slight resurgence, but he's fighting the right fights, I'll put it. So who knows? Maybe this is the time Court McGee saves his job, because one more loss and he's out. So he might be fighting for his job, but that doesn't always, mean he's going to win. His takedown defense is good. His striking is good. It's just that if Claudio takes his back or takes him to the ground, that threat for the submission doesn't matter who you are. He's going to get something on you. Because of that, I'm going to go with Silva, because of that threat of the submission. He can end it at any time, but there is a chance that this goes over and Court McGee sneaks out a decision. But I'm not sure on it. I would like to do a dog or pass on this one. Screw it. I think I will. I will go with the dog. Court McGee to win this one by decision. So I think it might go over. I think his takedown defense will stay up. I'm not confident in it. I'd rather choose Claudio Silva, but I'll go with Court McGee. Screw it. I think he might be able to win the decision.
I'm going with Claudio Silva in this one. I think this is Court McGee's last fight in the UFC. I don't think they're going to give him the courtesy losing, cowboy streak, or 7 fight, however long it is at this point. I think he's going to try to fight for his UFC, contract, but I think he's going to get cut after this fight. I mean, he's going to have a win over Robert Whitaker back in 2013 as a highlight of his career. But since then, man, he's lost to guys that he should, if he wanted a lengthy UFC career, that he shouldn't have lost to. I'm not going to go through all the names, but he got beat by Carlos Condit. Carlos isn't exactly, the what is he? The natural born killer that he was a decade ago. But he managed to beat Court McGee, and I think that alone says, or not Carl, not to bash Carlos. I mean, I'm a fan of his. But losing Carlos, Diego Lima, Sean Strickland, Ben Saunders. I mean, this guy has got a very spotty record, and I don't think he's UFC material. I think he's probably fit to be on either the Bellator main card, be in the PFL, or try to be the next bare knuckle, star. So I think he's going to end up in one of those promotions this year. I'm going to take Claudio Silva by decision in this one.
Damn, I'm regretting saying Court McGee after I said it. I'm like, damn. It's one of those things though, because I got ravaged the last card, the 262. I got destroyed. I was like, I thought I had a good read, and then I'm like, maybe if I do the opposite this time, I won't get. Dude, every single fight I had thought I had a good read on. I'm like, what? No, what's happening? What are you doing, Snell? Throw a punch, god damn it. And then yeah, it was bad. It was a bad time for Johnny.
Dude, you want to George Costanza your way to a winning ticket this time around?
Oh, well, I'll try it. I'll go with Court McGee to win by decision. I might do the over on this one just to be safe, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that one's going over for sure.
But our next fight at heavyweight, this one's been a crazy ride for poor Ben Rothwell. It was supposed to be Felipe Lins, and it was going to be some tattooed neck freak who, funny enough, had the similar neck tattoo as Cody Garbrandt on the main card. I forgot his name, doesn't matter. But now he's fighting Beast Boy, Chris Barnett. And for those of you who don't know Chris Barnett, he's been kind of a staple on Instagram highlights for some time. He's just like a big guy, and he throws some spinny stuff, and he's fun to watch. He's very fun to watch, and I'm glad he's in the UFC. And to make it quick, it just has to be at the wrong time fighting Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell, I think he has every advantage. Starting with the height, I'll give you the height. He's 6'4" compared to 5'9" for Beast Boy, Chris Barnett. That's like, damn. He's got an 80-inch reach, what Rothwell does, and I'm not 100% sure what Barnett's is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be less than Rothwell. Rothwell has way more experience. He's fought the way better competition. He may be older. It's just that you've never really seen Ben Rothwell get knocked out, and in this particular fight, that's the only thing I can see Chris Barnett doing to win the fight. I don't even have odds, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be astronomical for Ben Rothwell. Who knows? But I got Ben Rothwell to win this one. If not I want to say a later submission or TKO or a finish, I should say, or a decision at the very least, a decision win for Ben Rothwell. I'm rooting for Barnett just because, like, man, it'd be fun to see this guy in the UFC. Maybe he can drop some weight, go down and fight at 205. But yeah, he's going to be a fun addition. Hopefully he gets some better matchups. But in this case, he's just fighting a big boy, and he's going to get big brother.
Yeah, Ben Rothwell, I think the volume alone is going to be too much for Barnett. I see a second round TKO in the card. If not, I think in the first round, he's probably going to back up a lot. But I think by the second round, he's going to be like, ah, crap. And he's just going to give in to Ben Rothwell. I mean, Ben Rothwell is not looking too great these days. I don't know if it's health-related issues, training-related issues, because of health issues, or what the hell's going on. But I mean, he's never been the most athletic. But since he got caught for juicing, he hasn't looked as juicy as, like when he beat Overeem, and he did the Irish jig or whatever the hell he did. He's still, I don't know, man. I think he's toward the end of his career as well. He's going to bounce back from his last loss to he lost to
Tybura.
Tybura. I'm sorry, he beat OSP. He lost to Tybura. Unfortunately for Beast Boy, he does not have Tybura's what's the word? Endurance. So yeah, not too. This isn't going to be the most exciting of fights. And Ben, they're probably going to price out Ben Rothwell from putting on any part. I mean, I guess you can add him to a parlay because he's most likely going to win, but take that with a grain of salt because you never really know. But man, 7 inches of height, that's a lot, especially in the heavyweight division, man. I don't know, man. Unless he has like some sort of some sort of like really good jump punch or I don't even know what the hell to call it, to be able to reach Rothwell's chin or something, or some combo where he hits him really hard in the stomach. Then Ben Rothwell, like, he doubles over and then he uppercuts him a la Street Fighter. I don't really see Barnett, taking down Rothwell and dominating him on the ground and such. So not really too much more to say. I'll take Rothwell by second round TKO.
Next matchup at featherweight, we've got Senor Perfecto Bill Algeo versus Ricardo Ramos. And I've been going back and forth with this one quite a bit. Like we've broke this one down before, and it just keeps getting canceled and then brought back. So hopefully they fight out this time. Currently the odds are -120 for Algeo, -105 for Ramos. And I think initially I had Ramos, and then I started thinking maybe Algeo, because it is a tough, fun little fight at featherweight, because you can see things happening a certain way, but you have no real idea until they actually go in there and fight, because one guy's weakness could then become not a strength, but it can be tightened up, and one guy's strength could not be as good as the other guy's. Whatever. But for example, a fight to bring up is Grundy versus Vanderaa. I thought Grundy was going to take him down, beat him up, take the neck. And then we saw Vandettaa's takedown defense look fantastic. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, does he look that great at featherweight now? Or is it just that Grundy's wrestling isn't as good? Who the hell knows? And then that could be the case here. Ricardo Ramos has some flashy, dynamic striking, but it might not work on Bill Algeo because he's taller, or who the hell knows. Currently, I think Bill Algeo has the advantage on the ground. But when it comes to like fundamentals with jiu-jitsu, Ricardo Ramos, I wouldn't say he's not bad at jiu-jitsu, or he is bad at jiu-jitsu, but he's not as technical. I think he might go for submissions over positions anytime. So he might be very dynamic in getting an armbar, but he might not be able to complete the armbar like Bill Algeo would. And then for Algeo, his striking is quite rudimentary, but it's satisfactory enough to potentially land on Ramos, because Ramos does a lot of unnecessary things sometimes. Like he throws a weird, I think McGregor did it too, but it's like a kick to the calf, but it's not even that impactful. He just throws it like behind his leg, kind of like a soccer player would, like to kick the ball behind him. Like, why do that? Like, it's not like, why do that shit? Don't do that shit. So who the hell knows what will happen in this matchup? It's a tough one to really go back and forth on. I'm kind of leaning at this point Algeo, because Ramos, he's I think the better striker, and he can even beat the crap out of Bill Algeo on the feet if he can avoid the takedowns or being pressed up against the cage. Because again, he is just more flashy and dynamic, and I think he has more power in his punches. But if he throws a spinning back kick and then he gets taken down, a la Rockhold and Weidman, and then Algeo just stomps him out on the ground, I'm there with my dick in my hand and a bad ticket. So I'll go with the wrestler slash grappler in Bill Algeo. Him having a reach advantage, slightly, that is like 1.5. and having a height advantage. I think that's really going to come into play. 6 foot tall compared to the 5'9" Ramos. And it's one of those things like Ramos could get an early lead with his striking and then just get beat up on the ground. And then I suspect that his chin might not be very good. Leon Murphy just whipped him when he got him to the ground and TKO'd him. We'll see, though. I'll go with Algeo. It's not the most confident pick, but something is telling me maybe Algeo has a bit of the bully in him to get Ramos down and then just control him there and then either ride out a decision. But I will go with a second round TKO, mainly because I am suspecting there might be something with Ramos that he can't really take a clean punch.
I think whenever I see this, I'm like, is it deja vu? How many times have we talked about this damn fight? Like, that it hasn't come through.
And we'll see if it doesn't come through this time. We might talk about it again.
Yeah, I think I don't recall what I went with before, but if I said something different, I'm also going with Algeo. I think he's, even though his record, even though his record indicates he might have a loss, this time around, I think he'll be able to put a win together here for at least a 2-fight win streak. His height, I don't know, when I picture this fight, it's weird. I see the tall guy with short arms versus a shorter guy with long arms. So it's like a Stretch Armstrong situation here with it's comical. Yeah, I think Bilaggio's going to pull off the win here. I don't think he'll be able to submit or TK Ricardo. I think he'll decision a lot of them and come away with the victory. He'll be proud of himself and pat himself on the back. And then he'll celebrate his 32nd birthday pretty soon, having secured a win and secured his job for at least for another short while. So I'm going with Algeo because I think unfortunately he's in his prime. So I think it's his time right now. It might be Ramos' time a little bit later, a little bit down the line, but as of right now, I think Algeo is going to secure the win decision.
And before we get into the main card, I'd like to ask, please like, share, subscribe. Go and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. I know Twitter is kind of it is what it is. I don't really care for Twitter, but it's nice to see people kind of commenting and getting back to us immediately and asking us questions there. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Twitter's a hellhole. But we'll get on to the main card: Jack Hermannson versus Edmund Shahbazyan, the Joker versus the Golden Boy. And we've broke this one down before. It was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago. Who cares? But now it's on this card, and it's not going to change my opinion. Man, all I'm thinking, I don't know why I keep thinking this, but if Jack Hermannson shows up with bleach blonde hair, Edmund Shahbazyan's just going to walk out of the cage and forfeit, because that bleach blonde Kevin Randleman hair has been nearly unstoppable as of late. Like Brunson, Oliveira, some other guy. Just recently, actually, Phil Haas had his hair dyed blonde, and it was falling out a little bit. But the fact that his gas tank held up against Dawkins, I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, is this some sort of like mystical Kevin Randleman power? And it has to be, right? Like, for the fact that Phil Haas had a pretty good gas tank going into the third round, I was like, holy shit, maybe I'll dye my hair blonde. But Jack Hermannson versus Shahbazyan, it's one of those things. First round knockout for Shahbazyan, very possible, absolutely very possible. Or Jack Hermansson's going to destroy Edmund on the ground, second or third round. So it's a coin flip. It's minus 155 for Hermannson, plus 120 for Shahbazyan. And it's really, really a fascinating fight. And I will go with Hermannson because he's fought the better competition. And I'm not one of those guys that likes to call out like, oh, this guy's never fought anybody. And his one step up in competition was Derek Brunson, and Brunson to him, as where the term Brunsoning comes from. I don't know if we invented it or if it's been out there, but I'll take credit for it regardless. Yeah, he got Brunson by Brunson, and that was a bad look. He gassed out and he got demolished on the ground. And that was Brunson who did that. And he's no slouch, but when it comes to the ground and pound, Jack Hermannson, he puts a little something extra on it. Like he takes the time to put the pepper on the fist and put a little bit of hot sauce and some relish and garlic and then just feeds it to you. Like those hammer fists are nasty. Just thinking about them gives me like the urge to go out and run. Like, ooh, yeah, that's awesome. So Hermannson, if he takes him to the ground, either by the guillotine, the Joker team, or he's gonna pound him into oblivion. The thing with Jack, though, he's a very awkward guy on the feet, and he can make a lot of easy reads for the guys. So when he fought Cannonier said, I knew what he wanted to do, so it made it easier for me to strike with him, and that's how he got the knockout with the uppercut and the ground and pound. So it's really up to Hermannson to really show us where he's at in this division because he's either slowing down or he just got into a roadblock because he ran into a roadblock with Cannonier. He was on a pretty good run until Cannonier put an end to that. And then he got a win over Gastelum, which is like maybe he's going to the top again, but then he got stopped and not physically stopped in the fight. He got decision by Vettori, but Vettori put a stop to his little rise. And maybe Shahbazyan may not have fought the top competition, but maybe this is the spot where he can beat Jack Hermannson. But from what I've seen, I cannot put money on Edmund Shahbazyan, nor will I, just because of that last stunt that he pulled. Like I had some good money on Shahbazyan. I thought he was going to run through Derek Brunson because, like, oh, Derek Brunson has no chin. He's going to knock him out. Yeah, I was guilty of that. And then I changed my mind. Of course, Brunson's kind of become one of my, I guess, not necessarily favorite fighters, but it's one of these guys that like I admire now. And when it comes to Hermannson, he's another guy I admire very much so. It's just that I know his weaknesses, just very much like I thought I knew the weaknesses of Brunson, which they're still there, but he's very good at hiding those weaknesses now and protecting himself. As for Hermannson, he has the problem of over analyzing a fight and kind of getting stuck. Like Chael says, paralysis by analysis. That is Jack Hermannson at times. When he goes out there and he does what he has to do, he will do it. He will get the choke. He'll get your back, pound you out. He can win with a broken rib. Yeah, I got Hermannson to win. I think he's just a tougher guy. As long as he doesn't get caught in the first round and he can implement his grappling and tire out Shahbazyan, like he should win. We'll see though. Maybe Shahbazyan's gas tank has improved. If it has, props to him. But he would have to show us something. It's really one of those points that, as you bring up, it's Hermansson's fight to lose, and it's Edmund's time to show us what he's capable of. So it's a coin flip. I will go with Hermansson to win this one. I will say I might even go with the under. If it's under 2.5, I think I'll go with the under. I think something significant happens before the third round. But yeah, I'll go with Hermansson to win this one by a second round submission.
Yeah, this is going to be Shahbazyan's time to shine and show us what he's all about, which is absolutely nothing. This guy has no heart. He's, the pride of the Glendale Fighting Club, which that in itself speaks volumes. Yeah, he has really nothing for Jack Hermannson in this fight. Jack's going to come in and he's going to dominate him on the ground. He's, I mean, he could light him up on his feet, but Jack, I think, is going to really show him, what more of what he's missing on the ground. Because Brunson didn't necessarily show, how tough he was. It was more he just kind of showed what Shahbazyan's true colors were, and that's yellow. He's a yellow fella. He's really got nothing for the UFC. I mean, he came in and he really hasn't beat anybody. When it came time to actually face a contender, I guess you can call Brunson a contender because he's always up there, ready to fight whoever. He showed he doesn't have it. Will he ever have it? As long as he's with that Glendale Fighting Club, I don't believe so. And Jack Hermannson is going to come in and show, that he deserves to fight somebody else in the top 5. And this guy Shahbazyan is going to be nothing but an afterthought. And I think with this loss, maybe his next loss, he's going to be vying for Bellator contendership, or trying to make his way up the PFL ladder. Because I don't think he's gonna. I don't think Tarverian or whatever that guy's name is going to be um, good enough coach to get him to bare knuckle fighting. To get him the bare knuckle championship belt. So I'm going by Hermannson by second round. Let's see. I'm gonna say rear naked choke. He's gonna get his back, or maybe what's that thing called? An arm triangle? Yeah. I'll say possibly either rear naked choke or arm triangle. Second round. Hermannson.
Our next matchup at flyweight, we've got the Undertaker, David Dvorak versus Julian Paiva. Very fun matchup at 125. Currently, the odds we have at minus 155 for Dvorak, and then a plus 125 for Paiva. Very good matchup between these two guys because we've got a very cerebral guy in David Dvorak. He's a chess player, as he likes to mention, and the way he fights is like he really writes a thesis sometimes how to beat a guy, and he tends to decision these dudes. For example, he beat Bruno Silva about a year ago, and he beat Jordan Espinoza. And I think some people were on Espinoza at that point, but I'm like, no, Espinoza's got nothing for David Dvorak. Julian Paiva, on the other hand, he's a tall guy. He's 5'8" compared to 5'5" for Dvorak. He's got a inch and a half inch reach. The thing about Paiva is that he's on a 2-fight winning streak, and he hasn't really fought the greatest competition. He knocked out Mark De La Rosa, who is long gone from the UFC. So much so that his wife, Montana De La Rosa, is the superior De La Rosa. She's proven that she's like the tougher one. And I believe this fully. If they were to fight, Montana destroys Mark. It's like, take out the trash. He's like, yes, dear. When it comes to Zalgas, on the other hand, that was a weird fight between Zalgas and Paiva. It was close, but eventually Paiva ended up getting the win. I actually max bet Paiva and it pulled off, but I was sweating bullets. It's one of these matchups between two guys where guys in Paiva, that is, he's more dynamic, he's flashier. There's a lot to like when it comes to Paiva, but Dvorak, he's a very cerebral fighter. He thinks things through. Dvorak is not very flashy. He's just meat and potatoes. And then we've got, when it comes to Paiva, he just offers a little bit more, but sometimes a little bit more isn't exactly what's needed. I'm going with Dvorak just because I think he just finds a way to win. I don't want to call him a boring fighter, but he does just enough to win every single time. It could be a lot closer, but I'm going to go with Dvorak to win this one by a 29-28 decision, possibly even a split, because Paiva he's a very scrappy young guy. With Dvorak, what's funny is that he's the Undertaker, but I am the Overtaker. I'm taking the over as well. So if I'm betting this one, I'm doing the over, and I'll go with Dvorak to win by decision.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a very, very close fight. I think I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to say it's. Yeah, no, I don't want to say. I'm also taking the over in this one. Yeah, and I think Dvorak should do enough to get that the 20, 29, 28 nod. It's too close to call, for sure winner, but yeah, in my eyes, Dvorak will edge this fight out. Don't really have much to add. Yeah, this is another one, another funny one, at least in my head. The taller guy with the slightly longer reach and the shorter guy with the almost same reach. It's odd in my brain, but yeah, I'm also going with I don't want to keep going in circles. Just Dvorak by close decision.
Our next matchup at featherweight, we've got the two remaining women at featherweight fighting: Felicia the Phenom Spencer versus Norma the Immortal Dumont. And I could have sworn that Norma went down to bantamweight, but now she's back to featherweight. Yeah, I don't know what else. I don't really know what else to say other than just introducing these ladies. I don't want to break this one down. I got Felicia Spencer to win by submission. Like she's tough. She's super tough. That's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time because it's a good thing because when you're betting her, odds are she's not going to get knocked out. But how do we know she's tough? She got her ass beat by Amanda Nunes, which it's going to happen. But she was at least able to hang in there and survive. I don't think Norma has that capability at all. She got finished by Megan Anderson, and we know what happened to Megan when she fought Amanda Nunes. I got Felicia Spencer to win this one. I think one takedown, and then it's over. Um, Dumont's more of a stand-up fighter. She's more of a kickboxer, Muay Thai gal. She's taller by an inch, and oddly enough, as you mentioned, the shorter fighter in this situation has a longer reach by an inch. In Spencer, she's 5'6" with a 68-inch reach compared to the 5'7", 67-inch reach. The odds, I forgot if I brought them up again. Favorite Spencer -160, Dumont +125. Underdog, I'll go with Spencer to win this one. First round submission. I got nothing really to say about it.
Actually, I do have an update on the odds. Odds are I'm going to eat too many hot wings and probably have to use the bathroom during this fight. Yeah, this is going to be a snooze fest. I'd say make sure to set your alarm for 15-20 minutes in case you do feel like taking a nap during this one. It's going to be, I think, a boring decision by Felicia Spencer. She's going to push her up against the cage, try to get her down, and not really do much more than that. I'm not really sure why this division is still around. I guess maybe they're hoping Felicia Spencer can drop down 10 pounds. She can go easy on the chicken wings and drop those 10 pounds, but who knows? I think the featherweight division, or is it Dana White or somebody said that the featherweight division is not really meant to last or whatever. Anyway, yeah, I guess we should just move on to something more interesting.
Moving on to something slightly more interesting at heavyweight, Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. And currently the odds we have Tafa -190 and Vanderaa +150. I don't know why I just laughed. I just thought about Tafa being -190. I'm like, that's kind of laughable. But we've got a guy who is 4-2 going up against a guy who's 11-5. And I think this might be my first underdog pick in Vanderaa because Justin Tafa, his last fight, kind of a weird one. He was looking really good and improved against Carlos Felipe, but then Felipe, he just I guess toughed out. I don't know what I'm saying. He just out testosterone Justin Tafa because Tafa was looking really good and Carlos Felipe just refused to go out and he just went balls to the walls and ended up stealing that decision from Tafa because it was a fun fight. And all I remember from that is because like when I'm watching fights sometimes, especially like undercard or if it's a fight night, I'm not watching it all the way through like I am, but I'm doing something else. Like I think I was putting my floors down in my bedroom while watching that fight and I'm cutting a piece of wood and then I'm watching Tafa win and then I cut another piece of wood and then Carlos Felipe is winning. I'm like, holy shit, this fight's crazy. As for Vanderaa, his last fight was an embarrassing loss to Sergey Spivak. And normally I wouldn't say losing to Sergey Spivak is embarrassing. Oddly enough, not Tafa, but what's his name? The guy who's also slight protege of Mark Hunt. Bam Bam. Tai Tuivasa. Tafa and Tuivasa. There you go. That's why.
Junior Albini?
No, not Junior Albini. Tai Tuivasa. I get him confused because of the last name. But Tuivasa lost to Spivak. But what made it embarrassing was that Vanderaa specifically he called out Spivak. He's like, I want to fight Spivak. I've got a big head. I want to fight him. He gets his ass handed to him by Sergey Spivak, which was like, ooh, not a good look, bro. But I think Vanderaa has what it takes to actually beat Justin Tafa. Tafa's the better striker, but he's the smaller guy. He's 6 foot tall compared to the 6'4" in Vanderaa. He's got a 74-inch reach for Tafa, 80-inch reach for Vanderaa. And I think the odds are the way they are right now, where he's an underdog for Vanderaa, is because of his embarrassing loss to Spivak. And frankly, I think Spivak would do the same thing to Justin Tafa, but just quicker, because he's also one of these guys who's improved tremendously. He was looking bad, and then he has a way to just get better fight by fight. Tafa, he's looked improved as well, but all he really has is a knockout. And I don't know, like his chin isn't like, oh my God, legendary Mark Hunt chin, because he got knocked out by De Castro. I see Vanderaa actually taking it to the ground, controlling Justin Tafa, and then just pounding him out. Again, I think the odds are dog money for Vanderaa because of that very very bad loss to Spivak. But that's not to say that he's not someone that can get a win in the UFC. I think this is a perfect opponent for Vanderaa. So I see him actually taking it to the ground and beating him up in the second round TKO. Justin Tafa, he's only 4-2. I just don't see him having the takedown defense against a guy like Vanderaa. So I'll go with Vanderaa to win this one second round knockout.
Yeah, funny. I was just thinking that Justin Tafa has maybe half a round of cardio in him. If he doesn't get the knockout net for half a round, he's just a slug for 2.5 rounds if he makes it, full 3 rounds. Spivak, I think, is going to take advantage of that. I think he should
Spivak or
be able to
Vanderaa?
weather. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Spivak? Well, hopefully Spivak tags in Vanderaa. Well, I think I think Vanderaa has enough, I think, fighter IQ to weather the 2.5-minute storm that is Justin Tafa. And then from there, it should be just cruise control. I think Vanderaa should be able to just cruise to, what is it? At least a 29-28 victory. I don't know if they'll give the first round to Tafa unless he lands like some pretty big bombs and puts Vanderaa in all sorts of trouble. And then he comes back, in the second and third round. And it's like, oh my God, would he come back? Back of the year. Man, he's only 27. Holy crap. I thought he was 37. Ooh, man, Justin Tafa has been on that treadmill. So I'll go with Vanderaa by decision.
In our co-main event, we've got a matchup between Xianan and Carla, the Cookie Monster Esparza. And this is going to be, I don't know if it's been official yet, but it's got the writing on the wall for the number one contender fight to determine the next challenger for Rose. And it'll be interesting because Carla Esparza was the one who handed Rose her first UFC loss and actually ended up winning the inaugural strawweight title during the whole Ultimate Fighter crowning of a champion bullshit. And unfortunately, Rose didn't win the title at that time because it was essentially being billed as like, Rose is going to win the title. We've got this cute young thing coming into the UFC, getting submissions. She looked unstoppable. And then Carla Esparza at her and submitted her in the third round or something. With this fight, very fascinating because Carla Esparza is on a 4-fight winning streak. And it's one of those things, like, she has grinded her way back to the top. Like, she had moments in the UFC career where it's like, okay, she's no longer champ. She doesn't really have much to offer. And then she still kept grinding. Like, she's a very tough wrestler. She really bites her mouthpiece sometimes and just goes for it. She's developed some pretty good striking. She's developed actually pretty good power in her right hand, which is kind of weird to say. Like, watching her first fight in the UFC, and if you were to tell me like, oh, one of these days she's gonna have a pretty good right hand and drop girls, I'll be like, get the fuck out of here. So it's something to keep an eye out for when it comes to this fight with her and Xianan, because Carla Esparza, hands down, probably one of the best female wrestlers on the roster, especially now that Tatiana Suarez is like in limbo because that's her last loss. She got dominated by Suarez, but she has beaten the likes of Verna Jandiroba, Alexa Grasso, funny fight with Grasso. Like Grasso tried her ass off at the very last minute, didn't work. Michelle Watterson. Oh, funny thing about that fight with Grasso is that it was in Mexico and they were booing Carla Esparza, even though she's Mexican as well. So it's like, boo, you suck. I'm like, but I'm one of you. Anyways, she also beat Miranda Rodriguez, who just recently got a win over Michelle Watterson as well. So it's like it's looking like a better win now, even though it's a split decision for Xianan. Excellent winning streak. She's been beating girls. I don't want to say dominantly, but in certain cases, dominant. Her last win was a win over Claudia Gadelia, which was a unanimous decision. That was one of the only fights where you kind of had a bit of trouble because Claudia, um, yeah, she gave her some tough times in that first round. But as Claudia continues fighting, she gasses out, and that's when Jan just proved herself to be top level. So that's one thing she has over Carla Esparza for sure is a win over Claudia. Claudia beat Carla. I don't want to say controversial, but yeah, Carla was putting it on her in later rounds. But this matchup is it's pretty damn fun. It's a pretty good co-main event, and that's weird for me to say with a Carla Esparza fight. Like I'm not like the biggest Carla Esparza fan out there. Like I respect her skill set. I respect the fact that she is like pushing herself and getting back to the title that she lost. But I always remember the times where I would go out to see Invicta fights. And I think in one particular card, she was set to fight, but she got injured, but she still showed up to the fights. And not only that, she showed up in the front row, sitting down, watching the fights. And not only that, she had her belt on her shoulder. I'm like, what are you doing, Carla? It was just like cringy, but unintentionally cringy, which was even worse. But this one, it's kind of a toss up for me just because like Jan is expected to win, but if she gets put on her ass and she gets held there by Carla Esparza, it could be one of those things that the dynamic Chinese fighter gets trumped by good old fashioned American wrestling. I will pick Yan to win this one by decision. I think her takedown defense is pretty solid. The thing is that her takedown defense really hasn't seen the likes of the wrestling that Carlos Esparza is going to bring. That does concern me a little bit, but I think overall her skill set's great. Side kicks to the tits is awesome. Scores a lot of points with the judges. So I'll go with Yan to win this one by decision. I might stay away from it completely. For sure, going with the over because, yeah, definitely none of these girls are going to get knocked out or submitted. Carla Esparza, she's been beaten up and knocked out before, but I think her toughness has really progressed and the way her defense has improved, it's really good. So I don't see either of these girls really getting finished. So I'll go with the over on this one, but I've got Jan to win by decision.
I'm actually going with Carla Esparza on this one by decision, and a few reasons for that. One is not to diminish Xiaonan's win over Claudia Gadelia, but anybody that kind of follows Claudia Gadelia's or has followed Claudia Gadelia's career in the past, I guess it's just followed her career in general. So here's a few observations. When Claudia lived and trained in Brazil, I think she used to train with team, with Jose Aldo's team, whatever that team is. Unless I'm thinking of somebody else. But anyway, when she trained and lived in Brazil, she showed a lot more in the octagon. When she had enough money to move to the U.S., her performance uh, diminished. She's got too caught up in social media as of late. She's more concerned with taking these cringy pictures on social media than actually, getting into championship fighting shape. And she showed that in her last few fights. She only realistically has one round of cardio, if that, in her fights. If she doesn't finish or get a basically, if she doesn't finish a fight in one round, that's it for her. She's an Instagram fighter, to put it lightly nowadays. So not to say Xianan doesn't have any skills, which she does, to get to this point. But Carlos, and to your point, where you mentioned that she has good defense, good takedown defense, excuse me. Yeah, that's what all the guys. Well, actually, you know what? As far as wrestling is concerned, I think Carla Esparza is the Khabib of that division. She's the female, you know, slightly Mexican. She's kind of Mexican, right? She's not full Mexican.
Yeah,
Whatever she is.
she's full Mexican.
She's the Mexican Khabib of that female division. Because they all say, yeah, I've got great, all these guys are like, yeah, I've got great takedown defense. But they don't have great Khabib defense, great Khabib takedown defense. And I think that speaks a lot, for, I'd say, all, if not most of the girls in this division. They're good until, you go up against the Cookie Monster and she, starts those chain wrestling moves where they're like, oh yeah, I can deal with one takedown, but then when she tries 2, 3, 4, 5, she just wears them out. So I think she's gonna wear her out. She's gonna get the decision here, and I think it'll be interesting to see her versus Rose again. I don't believe they'll give Joanna the rematch with Rose right away. I think she's got to fight somebody. She can't come off with the law. I mean, who knows? It's the UFC. She could come off of a loss to Wei Li and then get a rematch with Rose, but I think they'll probably give it to Carla after this fight, because Tatiana Suarez, I don't think she's coming back to the UFC. She's like the Cain Velasquez of that division, man. It's like, she steps on the blade of grass and her knee goes out. So I don't know what the hell. Not to diminish her injuries or whatever. I really don't know what's going on with her. But I doubt she's going to fight again. So Carla is the Khabib of this division. Unfortunately, the other chick is the Cain of this division. And so we're going to see the Cookie Monster face off with Rose again. I'd say probably in May, June, July, maybe September-ish, October at this point. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see, how Rose does against Carla this time around.
In our main event, we've got a fight between Rob Font and Cody No Love Garbrandt taking place at bantamweight. Currently, the odds are -130 for Rob Font and +100 for Cody Garbrandt. It's crazy to think, because a few years ago, if you were to say Rob Font would be a favorite against Cody Garbrandt, I'd be like, what the fuck? But time progresses and certain things happen. And here we are, Rob Font being the favorite, and rightfully so. When it comes to these two, it's going to be a striking battle. And there is a possibility that Cody Garbrandt might shoot for a takedown and try to work his ground and pound. But I don't see it happening. And I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things like no one can think of that being a possibility. Like, if you were to tell me, for example, yeah, Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt's going to go to a decision and Cody Garbrandt's going to wrestle fuck Rob Font, I'd be like, get the hell out of here. But that's not out of the realm of possibility. I think that is going to be a game plan for Cody Garbrandt to try. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes, because Cody Garbrandt's chin is a liability. So much so that in his last fight against Rafael Sunsao, people were counting him out. People were saying, yeah, he's gonna be done. He's gonna get knocked out. And you forget who Cody Garbrandt is, despite getting knocked out 3 times in a row, 2 times by Dillashaw and the 1 time by Pedro Munoz. It's still Cody Garbrandt. He's an offensive machine. Like, the way he throws, he's super fast, very clean striking, a lot of power in that right hand. And we saw what he did to Sunsao. He could have retired him at that point. Like, he knocked him out so bad that he woke up and he got back down to the ground because he was still knocked out. It was ridiculous. And for Rob Font, I think he's finally coming into his own because his boxing is so damn good in the UFC. He's so long for the division, and he trains out of the cartel as well. It's listed as Lozon mixed martial arts, but it's what do they call it? The Boston cartel or something like that with him and Cater. I keep forgetting the name of it. But yeah, he trains with Calvin Cater, who's got some of the best boxing in the UFC. I would say second to Max Holloway. But yeah, his striking is really damn good. And his fight with Marlon Moraes, like it could be one of those things where he was a beneficiary of the times, where Marlon Moraes is just taking a nosedive into the career, but he knocked him out, and that's good. Um, yeah, Rob Font's never been knocked out. Cody Garbrandt's been knocked out. It's a tough one, really, because I can see Garbrandt winning this one, but logically, I got to go with Rob Font. I think he eventually finds the chin of Cody Garbrandt. We've seen Cody Garbrandt get suckered into fights, losing situations in fights, of course, getting into a war where he should absolutely not be getting into a war, and he makes mistakes. And we'll see how this goes leading up to the fight. If there's any drama between these two, if Rob Font calls Cody Garbrandt a bitch with neck tattoos, pisses off Cody Garbrandt, we might see Cody go in there with a lot of emotion and just throw the game plan out the window. I think he's also been training with Mark Henry, with I think it's Mark Henry, yeah, who trains with Frankie Edgar. So I think, yeah, I think he's been training with him as well, which is funny because he pulled a he pulled a Dillashaw training a Team Alpha Male, but he's also training somewhere else as well. So we'll see how that goes, because if anyone can get Cody to fight smart as he did with a Sun Sao, would be Mark Henry in that team. Uh it's a coin flip for me. Like when it comes to the logic of it, I can see a clear path for Cody Garbrandt. And with that plus money and all that firepower behind him, it's tempting. But Rob Font, he's a very good striker, very educated jab. And I think he can even hurt Rob Font with, or not Rob Font, but I think Rob Font can hurt Garbrandt with a very stiff jab. Might even finish him with a choke, because he's got those long ass arms. He's got a 71.5 inch reach compared to the 65.5 inch reach for Garbrandt. Man, it's a coin flip for me, because with that reach, Rob Font has to stay on the outside to connect with those punches. And Garbrandt is very fast, and I can see him going into the inside and actually dropping Rob Font. So it's going to be a hell of a fight, and it's excellent. I'm very much looking forward to this one. Man, I part of me just doesn't want to pick wrong, because I can see it's 50-50 for me. I can see a way each of these guys can win. I'll go with Rob Font. Screw it. I'll go with the favorite in Rob Font to win this one by a third round knockout. I think eventually he clips Cody Garbrandt. He has the better chin. He's got the more durability. I think he's only lost by decision, and he's also lost by choke to Pedro Munoz, if I remember correctly. So I think he can take it, but I don't think Garbrandt can take it anymore. So if he gets hit with anything, he's going to go down. Rob Font's going to finish him. So Cody would have to have a perfect fight and not get touched. And if it does get touched, it can't be with anything significant. And I think Garbrandt can pull that off. I think he has the skill still and the speed to avoid any major damage from Rob Font. But I think Rob Font, at this point in his career, I think he's finally hitting his groove. I think he catches Cody Garbrandt, puts him out, and then we'll be talking about a new contender in bantamweight. So I'll go with Rob Font to win this one by a third round knockout.
Yeah, this is a tough one. When you first look at it, it at first glance you might think, wow, Cody's back, as they say, which I've never really understood. Like, hey, I'm back. It's like, well, what was your cousin fighting for you before? I really always thought that was like the stupidest thing that anybody could say. But Rob, I think Cody's time has passed. I think he's past his prime. I think he is past his prime, his age, as well as physically. I guess those could. I guess maybe those are the same thing. But I think more so, I think his chin isn't. I think he's got. I think he got his ticket punched already one too many times. Now that isn't to say that Rob has, that one punch. Cody's more of a, he has the power to one punch knock out guys, but Rob Font, he's more of a, he's gonna piece you up for, the entirety of the fight. He could finish him, but I think he's gonna do, he's more of a combination point guy, which isn't bad. I think he still has a bit to improve. But overall, I think this is his fight to lose. Cody, he tends to get too emotional when he gets in there. And as you mentioned, he is an offensive juggernaut, which has worked to his advantage when he has fought smart. But when he's gotten a little bit too cocky, like he did with Dillashaw, I think he was actually in those two fights. I think he should have won, but he got too emotional, and we all saw what Dillashaw did to those two fights. Rob Font, however, I don't think he's gonna. I may be wrong. I don't think he's one to talk crap to Cody. So I don't think he'll have that, that edge to get Cody all emotional and go in there and make mistakes. I think he'll do that. I think Rob will do that by using his jab, staying on the outside, out pointing Cody. Cody's going to probably get upset and want Rob to, throw down with him in the middle of the ring. But I think that's going to be a mistake because Cody's chin is not what it used to be. And so I'm going with Rob on this one. I'm going to take him by decision, but it's a possibility he can TKO Cody Garbrandt maybe in the fourth or even the fifth round, depending on, if he can put his combos together. Because Cody has a freakishly long neck for somebody so small. I think his neck adds like an extra 4 inches to his height in that weight class. And he doesn't have all that great head movement, I want to say. His style of fighting, he tends to throw a lot of hooks, and that requires his neck to remain on the center line. He doesn't have that. I mean, he does have the boxing pedigree, but in MMA, he tends to, leave his neck on the center line as he's throwing these wild hooks, that accounts for a lot of his power. And I think Rob is going to take advantage of that. You're going to see him, catch Cody with more than a few punches that you wouldn't expect to catch him with. So I think Rob Font is actually going to beat Cody on the ground, on the feet. I don't see this fight going to the ground at all. I think Cody wants to make, or rather, not make, what's the word I'm looking for? He wants to stamp his, whatever. He wants to make himself known once again, that he's a contender and that he'll eventually fight for the title again. But I think Rob's the one that's going to move forward and fight, for maybe the number one contendership in his next fight. I don't think they'll give him, I do not believe they'll give him the next title shot. I think he'll have to definitively beat whoever's in front of him to get that title shot. But Cody, I don't think he's going to move forward. I think he's going to move a few steps back, and I think he's maybe 5 or 6 fights away from being cut at this point, unless they decide to give him cans to crush in the future. But I don't think that'll be the case.
And actually, I'll correct myself. It was the New England cartel, not the Boston cartel. I always forget stuff, especially this late at night. But
Chowder.
Chowder.
Yeah, don't you mean the Chowder cartel? Chowder.
Dude, that new I don't like chowder, but New England clam chowder is pretty goddamn good. I was surprised that I was like, oh wow, this is actually really good. I'd beat up a Frenchie over this bullshit too. But those have been our picks for UFC Fight Night Font versus Garbrandt. Make sure you please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Love interacting with you guys. But those have been our picks, Johnny and Jose, TigerBomb MMA, and we'll catch you at the next fight.